Hello everybody, I'm Bede, aka the Terrible Australian of Super Podcast, and welcome to the 8th edition of my 2012 Melbourne International Film Festival video reviews, or MIFF for short. For this one, I'll be reviewing the Australian horror comedy 100 Bloody Acres and the cult thriller Sound of My Voice. So let's get right into it. First up, 100 Bloody Acres. Now you're probably wondering, what the hell is this movie? How come I've never heard of this film? Well, first of all, it's Australian, so you probably have never heard of it anyway. Just kidding. But actually, this film actually made its world premiere anywhere in the world at MIFF this year. So it was only shown 3 times, and I was able to manage to get at the 3rd session. There are a couple of reasons why I wanted to see this film, and one of them in particular was that of my list of films I was seeing this year, I sort of noticed there was a lack of Aussie flavour to my... It's not that I didn't want to see any Aussie films this year at the festival. It's just the ones that were listed didn't really stand out to me. I'm pretty sure they're all good films, but none of them just sort of was like the one where that just went, yeah, I definitely need to check this out right away. And I will admit 100 Bloody Acres was one of those films, but it wasn't until I actually heard the Twitter reaction from this film, and I thought, okay, I'll check this one out, because I love horror movies and I love Australian films, and I like horror comedies, so let's see what we've got here. So the film is about 3 young people from the city who decide to travel to the country for a music festival, and along the way their car breaks down, as they usually do in horror movies, and then they get picked up by a fertilizer salesman by the name of Reg, who in the film is played by Damon Herriman, and he decides to help them out by giving them a lift to their music festival. But along the way he needs to make a stop, as they usually do, over at his farm, which he lives with his brother, played by Angus Sampson, who you probably remember from the film Insidious, where they run their fertilizer business. But the thing is, their fertilizer is known as to be the best fertilizer in the whole countryside. But as the city kids soon discover, is that the reason why their fertilizer is so good is because they add an extra ingredient to their fertilizer, and which just happens to be dead bodies. And so from there, it's basically the kids trying to get out of this situation so they can survive. But interesting enough, the one person who wants to help them out is the character of Reg. That's pretty much 100 Bloody Acres in a nutshell. I have to admit, as much as I do love horror, and I do admire the effort of the film's directors, who just happen to also be brothers Colin and Cameron Keynes, I give them credit for, in a lot of ways, for their debut feature. But at the same time, I kind of feel the film it's average. While there are some good things about it, a couple of the performances are really good. I really enjoyed Damon Herriman's performance as Reg, and he's a character who starts out as being the villain, but during the course of the film he becomes the hero, and that's what I really liked, his character arc through the story, and he's a character that we as an audience, we root for, even when at the beginning he's kind of doing these really bad things, which in a way he doesn't want to do, but due to circumstances he has to do it. But we kind of root for him as a character, and I really enjoyed his performance. And I also enjoyed Angus Sampson as Lindsay, because he pretty much gets to fully immerse himself into a sort of a villainous role. And other aspects as well, it does have some really funny moments in it, and it also has some pretty cool, fun little gore moments as well. And as a comedy, it does entertain, but at the same time, it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. There are some little turns that make it a little bit more different than others in the genre, but most of the time it sort of kind of relies on the same kind of cliches and that we're accustomed to in the genre, so it doesn't really add anything new to it that we haven't already seen done and better before. And like, even though a lot of humor hit, there are some moments during the film where some of the humor kind of fell flat, and also the pacing was a bit off, on and off at times. Sometimes it was well paced, sometimes the pacing was pretty bad. Yeah, and there's nothing really kind of special about it. Like, there are elements of it that are good, but overall there's just nothing that was special about it to make it unique in the horror genre, especially Australian horror. Although I did enjoy John Jarratt, who you know is playing Mick Taylor in probably the best Australian horror film ever made, Wolf Creek, has a cameo in this film, and I enjoyed his cameo. Well, I can tell when I was watching the film that the audience really enjoyed it, and maybe it just didn't really work for me because, you know, since I've seen so many horror films in my time, it just didn't really leave an impression on me. And it might be a film that other people will enjoy as well. And I think in a way there might have been a factor that kind of maybe settled my enjoyment of the film, was the fact that I was tired when I was watching it, so maybe that might have factored into why I didn't enjoy it as much. But overall, it's an average horror film. It has good moments, some solid acting, but it's kind of forgettable. But I do give credit to the Caines brothers for the effort, though, because I think even though there are some things that didn't work in the film, there were a lot of good things that they did get right, and I do admire their first effort, and hopefully when they make their next film it will be even better. So overall, out of 5, I give this a 2.5, and it's my least favourite film of the festival, but doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It's just average, and that's just basically all it is. But if you do like horror, I would say recommend check it out, because even though I didn't really care much for it, but it doesn't mean other people won't. So definitely sort of, you know, leave it up to you to make your own decision when this film comes out. I'm not sure when the release date is in Australia, so I assume it'll be out sometime in the next few months, so when it does, you make a choice whether you want to see it or not. But at the same time, I do want to support Australian films, and especially Australian horror films, so in that regard definitely check it out, but at the same time don't really expect much. Now onto my next film, which is The Sound of My Voice. The film is about a couple who happen to also be filmmakers who decide to make an expose on a new cult leader by the name of Maggie, who in the film is played by Brit Marlin, who also happens to co-write the film as well. And they decide to become members of the cult and then eventually expose her for they believe to be the fraud that she is. And what makes her interesting as a cult leader is the fact that she claims that and spoilers if you don't want to hear this, she's from the future. The film, I'm gonna admit, the film's not perfect. Like, there are some flaws in it, but I did overall enjoy this film. I did like that it sort of has a really specific tone that it keeps throughout. It sort of has this sort of unsettling tone, and it also has a bit of humor in it. Not too much, but enough that it doesn't feel overdone or out of tone with the story. And the performances are really good. But definitely Brit Marlin does a really great job as Maggie. She definitely sells it and you honestly get sucked into her performance as this cult leader, and you can definitely see why the characters in the film are drawn to her. And it's a film, the film does bring up sort of things that it doesn't really explore. Like, there's a couple of scenes during this film that sort of pop up and you're not sure exactly why they're there, and the film doesn't really explain why they're there. But I think, and you could probably chalk that up as lazy screenwriting, but I think there's probably a purpose to that. And the thing I found interesting about the film is that it brings up, besides what I just said before, the film does bring up these sort of interesting elements that are very thought-provoking, and it's a film that I'm still in a way thinking about long after I watch it, and it's definitely brings up some interesting themes, ideas, and there are, like I said, scenes during the course of the film that you're not sure why they're there, but you sort of think maybe there's a reason why they're there, and you sort of try to add the story up and what it actually, what does it all mean. And I'm just going to put it out there, I think this film was far more thought-provoking as a sci-fi film than Prometheus. It's a film that makes you think, basically, and it definitely, I'm still thinking about aspects of the film since I viewed it the other day. It's an interesting film. I'd definitely say it's worth checking out. Like I said, it is flawed and it isn't perfect. I admire the effort of this film, and I did enjoy it very much. And I definitely say it's worth checking out. So it's a solid movie, not a perfect film, but I definitely appreciate the effort and as well as admire that this film wants to be more than it is. It may be vague on some of its questions, but at least at least as an audience, it gives us a kind of a hint what of the possibility of what the answers to these questions might be, or at least let us draw our own conclusions what it all means. And also, the ending of this film is great, and I won't spoil what it is, but it's definitely an ending that you will remember. Not as memorable as something like Killer Joe, which I reviewed the other day, but it's still an ending that it definitely sticks with you after when you watch it. So, Sound of My Voice, I really liked it a lot. Out of 5, I definitely give it a solid 3.5, and it's worth checking out. So, alright, that's the end of my 8th edition of my MIFF video reviews. Keep a lookout for my 8th and final video review in which I'll be reviewing the films The Hunt, starring Mads Mikkelsen in his Cannes Film Festival Best Actor winning performance, and as well as Alps, the follow-up film from the director of Dogtooth. So keep a lookout for that one, and I'll see you then. See you, everyone.